I love brainstorming. I love creative problem solving because I think if you do it enough, when things are nice and calm in the office, you come up with new ways of solving problems so that when a crisis does hit, you don't just do things the way you've always done them. You've got some new tools that because you've been using them, you can fall back on and say, okay, well, maybe let's try this technique for solving this problem because it's just something different to do. If you do the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same result. So if you're feeling like you're never quite cracking the problem, then try a different technique for solving that problem. And there's a really good book that I use called Instant Creativity. It's out there, Amazon's got it, go out and buy it. It's a thin little book, lots of ideas for brainstorming and creative thinking.
Every Wednesday, I meet with the president of our board of directors, Brooke Grossberg. She and I talk. First we eat. First we circle together, the two of us. We check in. Then we have a biscuit and some tea. And then we talk about the nonprofit and what it is we need to do as a board. What she needs to create for the next board meeting, where we're at with the fundraiser, what I feel we need in terms of help. We do that for an hour and a half. And then every month we have a dinner at our house where the whole board comes together. We make a great meal. Eric makes a great meal, and we sit and we check in at the dinner table, light our candle, say our intentions, check in, and then we start talking about what's on the agenda that Brooke and I came up with that Wednesday or the last previous Wednesdays.
In my career as a fundraiser, I've always built in creative problem solving, creative thinking time for my team. When I was at the British Lung Foundation, I used to regularly hold brainstorming sessions to come up with a new theme for our direct mail appeal. And I didn't invite just the team, but I invited other people from the organization. The receptionist was there. I invited trustees in. I invited somebody in from our PR company. So you had lots of different types of brains at work, and you can really come up with some great ideas. To make that kind of brainstorming work, you have to have a goal. So you need to be organized about it. It's strange to say, but you need to be organized about brainstorming. So I found it most effective to circulate a memo or an email first and say, we're going to have a brainstorming session, give people at least a week's notice so they can start thinking about it. And the purpose of that is to come up with a theme for our next direct mail appeal, come up with a design idea for our next event, make it clear what the goal is, facilitate that session so you keep people focused on what the question is. But you do not say, no, that will never work. The idea of brainstorming is to get as many ideas out into the open, and you start examining them afterwards. So your first session, you get lots of ideas out and you start to shortlist it. You give people time, another week or two, and you call a second brainstorming session. This is what a lot of people don't do, is they don't do the follow-up and say, okay, this is the shortlist we came up with. What have you thought about in the meantime? And you'll get people say, oh, I was talking to my husband about this, and he said, well, why don't you do this? And it just continues that brainstorming process. And that is the most valuable time, I think, because the first time around, you just, people are just dumping out ideas. And when you organize those ideas a little bit more, you can start to evaluate them. So after the second brainstorming session, you get your real shortlist together, and then you start evaluating in terms of how much money can we raise, how many people can we involve, how is this going to help us meet our organizational mission and our strategic planning objectives.
In regards to using the what I definitely think of as a creative tool of brainstorming, I think you have to set out with realistic expectations, and that brainstorming is meant to create a gigantic cauldron of ideas, maybe two of which are actually the best fit for your organization and you are actually going to implement over time. But brainstorming happens in my life, at least, all the time. It's certainly part of our culture here daily as an organization at Pride Foundation, but we brainstorm a lot at the NDOA board level. A lot of my other volunteer projects utilize that as a tool, largely to get people unlocked from thinking that the first thing they say has to be the perfect resolution. And so brainstorming, when truly used as this kind of, just had a visual of like flinging spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. That is largely where I think brainstorming kind of plays this great opportunity where everybody just kind of starts throwing stuff and then you see what works from there. But there is also a line where you don't want to take that kind of chaos out on the road and brainstorm constantly. So I think I have found it very effective to say, out of a brainstorm there were 77 ideas and we've honed it down to 5 that we think we're still considering about whether or not we'd like to do. Taking that list of 5 then to chat with donors or talk to volunteers or get some additional feedback from board members or other key friends of the agency. That's great. People love to have something concrete where you've already shown some some progress. They're kind of joining in the momentum of your good work and they can say, okay, cool. So these are, okay, this is great. Well, I think 2 and 3 are really neat and 5, if you had tweaked it a little bit this way, that would be really cool. And I think folks, especially who are volunteering, we have to be careful not to give them these unbelievably huge lists of either projects to do or places where we're expecting their feedback. We kind of make it manageable so that folks feel successful fairly instantly. But I love a good brainstorm, induced by early morning coffee drinking at a staff meeting. It's a great way to just get the wheels spinning. As long as everybody agrees on the front end that we're using it as a creative tool, not necessarily as a strategic planning vehicle. But get me some Sharpies and a giant piece of paper and I'm in a pretty happy space. So.